With so much focus on keeping ourselves and our loved ones safe and healthy, it's easy to forget that most of us are going to experience things like allergies, colds, possibly even the flu. So, reminding you, proper hydration is crucial for all of these things. Remember, even slight dehydration can make you feel like you're getting sick, and none of us need that anxiety right now, that's for sure. That's where Hydrolyte comes in. Longtime fans will remember my obsession with Hydrolyte, which is simply the best oral rehydration product I've tried. I'm even more excited to introduce their brand new single-serve powder sticks. Simply pour one powder stick into a glass of water. They recommend 7 ounces. The powder dissolves almost instantly, creating the perfect balance of sodium, glucose, and water. Delivers up to 4 times the electrolytes of your typical sports drink. The other great news about Hydrolyte's new powder sticks, they're 100% all natural. No artificial flavors, colors, or sweeteners. They're available in flavors like orange and lemonade, and they taste great. Hydration is crucial, and Hydrolyte is fastest and easiest way to stay ahead of it. Get your supply of Hydrolyte powder sticks now at hydrolyte.com/DRDREW. Again, that's HYDRALYTE.com/DRDREW, and then use that code Dr. Drew 25 at checkout. Hearing a gigantic echo. I'm not sure if anyone heard that. You're the echo, not me, which is weird. How about now? Try. Test. Oh, all right. Yep. Get it on, Jason. Andrew, sorry to interrupt football, but I'm actually trying to pull up the Rational Revolution. Open a new window. Let me try that. If I can open it and copy it, I'm going to put it. I can't do it. All right, you guys, a lot to talk about today. Can you tell me, did Susan's mic, I'm sure it did work. Sounds good.
Did you hear me?
Everyone says good. They did not seem to hear the echo that I heard. Yeah.
So take the plugs out of your ears. What do you have to do?
Yeah, right. Prophylactic regime to fight COVID, Ted wants to know. All right, so it's a modification, what's called the Math Plus regimen. Math Plus, if you look it up, you'll find it was generated by the Eastern Virginia School of Medicine. And it's meant for sick people, but it's good as a prophylactic agent as well. So it's 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, somewhere between 2 and 7,000 units of vitamin D, depending on your replacement needs. Zinc, 25 milligrams. Quercetin is not specifically on the Math Plus program, but it's one that people are talking about, 500 milligrams. Thiamine, 100 milligrams is being discussed. Pepsid, 40 milligrams is being discussed. Have I left anything out? Anybody? So the Additics group, we're trying to figure out how to measure immune function in such a way to see whether or not this is having an adequate effect to help fight off virus with cellular immunity, as opposed to the time-honored focus on humoral immunity, which is the antibodies. I see. So Susan, try again with your mic. Apparently they just picked you up in my mic. Yeah. So
Now my mic is on.
let us know. We're interested. I want to talk about some of the headlines. Psychological aspects of political gaslighting and disinformation. Kyle, I mean, that's such a massive topic. We actually won't really know the full effects until we look back. Bridget says she's having trouble getting quercetin. You're spelling it wrong. Maybe that's part of the problem. It's available on Amazon. I got it there. Slight video delay, meaning the voice in the video are a little out of sync. Is that what you mean? I'm interested in that as well.
Okay. It's just causing a delay.
So maybe that's where the delay is coming
Set up
from.
a new thing for travel. I just have to figure out how to make it work.
We're trying to give Susan her own mic. So,
I'm figuring it out.
I mean, if you just sit closer, you'll get picked up on this one. Or I can put it down here. You can.
No, I don't
Okay.
need to talk. I have stuff to do.
Don't you guys think Susan needs to talk? I think she does.
The video's off sync.
Yes. Yeah.
What did he do to my computer?
Yeah. This is since Wednesday. Things are off a little
Okay,
bit. Actually, since Thursday, I gave a lecture. When did I give a lecture? Friday? I gave a lecture Friday, and it required us doing a whole special setup with the. Gregory, any effect of hydroxychloroquine prophylactically? Dr. Zelenko put out a position paper today, which you can find on Twitter, that claims some significant effect from it if used early enough. So we will see. It's a hard thing to document because the vast majority of people with COVID do well. But because here's our issue. Our issue is that it's so contagious that it's going to spread across so many millions of people that just even though it's less than 1% fatality rate, that's going to still mean a lot of people. So that's the deal.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay, Susan's experimenting. Thank you, CJ, with the Locals app. I'm going to do a Zoom. Somebody asked me to do a Zoom sort of little mini conference on happiness and philosophy and cults. And I want to talk about cults today more generally. Delay is still there, Susan. And keep an eye out for Twitter on that. We're gonna put an announcement out for a small group, a small groom soup. Barb, is it safe to take Pepcid regularly? It does not cause heart issue. The PPIs, the proton pump inhibitors like Nexium and Prilosec, those things, those are have more side effects. Pepcid seems to be essentially nothing. I take it very, very regularly. There was some old data on bone marrow suppression in Pepcid, but I've really never seen that. Russell, good job with the Vivitrol. Thank you. Well done. Locals is great, Steve. Thank you. I see you there. So what Steve is talking about is I have a new app, new organization called locals.com. It's a small drdrew.locals.com. It's a small group that has differing ways of interacting offline. So it's a way of creating a little social community without the hysteria and without the cancel risks and all that stuff. Lick my fart. I can say hi to your wife. I'm happy to say hi to your wife. Congratulations on being married to someone who considers it appropriate for their handle to be lick my fart. I imagine you have a good sense of humor as well. So we are going to put a link up, maybe put it on the stream here, Susan, a link to the cartoon. My daughter did a cartoon about cults I thought was really, really, really good. Yeah, it's hers. She and her little cult study group. And yeah, Matt Rhodes, modafinil is not really addictive unless you're using it in high doses. Be careful with any psychostimulants, of course. Okay. So cults. So I think we're living in a time when almost all of us seem to be swayed by cultic sorts of processes. You guys are saying so many interesting things, it's hard for me not to comment as the thread goes by, so I'm going to have to do that. Dillo Cougar, well done on The Obstacles Away. It's a great book by Ryan Holiday. That's his best, in my opinion, but he's written several other good ones. So here is the Vimeo. This is the link to the cartoon. And it points out how people are using emotional techniques, persuasion, absolute thinking as a way of getting you on board with their way of thinking, which begs no alternative. Now, essentially one of the common features of cult is it's my way or the highway. It's my way of thinking, no alternative way of thinking. You have to subjugate your thinking to my thinking. And nothing could be worse. Nothing could be worse for the human spirit. I mean, we are part of a history in this country which was intended to expand the human spirit and to allow for expressions based on freedom. This is exactly the opposite of that. This is now it's not a coercive government, which is what our government was sort of very, very concerned about. These are coercive relationships. This is a relationship that that is based in pathology. And one of the key symptoms that you're in that kind of relationship is two things: a denial of free speech, right? Anything you do, you're not free to say. And you have to check in with me before you express anything. Again, watch this cartoon. It really does a nice job of that. And these kinds of cults go all the way from domestic abuse situations, parent-child situations, government citizen situations, philosophical organizations, and frank cults. And philosophy is interesting. I mean, like, look at Stoic philosophy. You have to continue. People argue that Stoicism is not a philosophical discipline because there's no formal philosophical structure to it. And the idea about philosophy is you add to that structure. You think about it, you adapt it, you add your own sort of structure to the philosophical organization. With Stoicism, it's really more a way of living, a way of life. Some interesting observations on Stoicism is that it was originally designed for times when things are bad. A way, Marcus Aurelius Brandon is pointing out, yes, a very wise guy, but his Stoic document is really just a sort of a diary of his thoughts, how to manage in difficult times, which I would argue is a very, very useful thing to refer to now. GLB Orlando says in San Francisco yesterday, a free speech rally was attacked by Antifa. So what do we think then? If you're not allowed to think differently, I mean, you could argue that that's the Soviet system was sort of cultic. You could argue also that fascism is cultic. I mean, at the extremes, human relations become cultic, right? That whenever you see people requiring thought, requiring certain behaviors, and if you buy into it, if you subjugate your point of view, your free speech, your way of doing things, then that is a participation in a cult. Let's see. Somebody said here something interesting. Politics are now a cult. Yes, I think some if politics are not about discourse or about sharing ideas or building a consensus, then it's cultish. I don't know if it's really technically a cult, but it's cultish. Brad, you're saying I seriously were adopting the herd mentality early on in the pandemic. No, I was specifically attacking the herd panic, the herd issue that was going on that had gravely concerned me, and now we're in the middle of the consequences. So in short, I would say the cult behavior is to serve the creators in contrast to a revolution bestowing benevolence. It's giggle pigs. It's more complicated than that. I mean, it really at its core, think about it. There were times in our human in the environment of evolutionary adaptiveness, as we say, there was a time when subjugating to a leader could save your life. So we have a tendency to do that. If we believe that person is going to somehow help us survive, we will tend to go along with that. But that when it becomes completely oppressive, when you cannot have your own thoughts, when all must be subjugated to the one, that's a cult. And cults exist in the human experience because they had an adaptive value at one time. And if you didn't if you didn't get connected to your tribe, you would likely get killed. If you were ostracized, you would die. You needed the social environment in order to survive. You have an interesting question, Dilo Cougar. Doesn't borderline personality kind of have that issue of you're with me or against me attitude? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So you could argue that this tendency of ours to be either all in or all out is sort of a borderline tone to our personality. And I wrote a book on the idea that we were heading towards a narcissistic tone. Maybe we've gone past that. I kind of feel like it's more histrionic than borderline, but you're right. And just to be fair, most narcissistic processes include being all in or all out. And so it's I think just generally it's all in or all out as a narcissistic process. Susan is working on it. Yes, indeed. Thank you for pointing that out. She's working hard on it. You've said that. Okay, let me go to some of your readings here. I've dismissed vitamin D as a fighter. No, B-Bear hug. I have not dismissed it. I have said I'm not sure that it means anything. I've been taking vitamin D the entire time. What I said was, and this is exactly what I said, was that vitamin D plays an important role in maybe prevention in many diseases, even metastatic prostate cancer. It's been shown there. And that's what got me on it years ago. I routinely measure my patients' vitamin D levels. In fact, coming onto this stream, I was thinking I have to call a patient about her vitamin D levels. So I take thousands. I take a lot of vitamin D. So I never dismissed it. I just don't know that how much of an influence it has. I don't know. Did I read about an anecdotal outlier of a healthy young person dying from COVID, JRS? Yes, there are lots of anecdotes like that. There are anecdotes. And if you focus on that, it's interesting. So the President of the United States is... President of the United States... President of the United States is one version, which he walks through it no problem. And that's one common version of COVID. And then the other is, if you want to focus on the catastrophes, you can find them. You can find them. Mark, what about Robin? Dawn is saying, I was just saying that politicians are narcissist gaslighting. Yeah, they do that. That's right. Andrew's telling us there was a huge women's march in D.C. this weekend, so we can expect to see some. So we can expect to see some uptick. So let's talk about that. It's very. I'm trying to figure out what I'm seeing here in the data. So if you look at Florida, now you cannot believe the headlines. I read a headline this morning that said Florida's having a spike in Florida. No, Florida's not having a spike. So I went to look at the data, and Florida was trundling along at about 2,000 cases a day, give or take, roughly between 1,400 and 3,300. So they were like between 2,000 and 3,000. It's been there since all month of September and all month of October. Now, since October 15th, it has stayed above 3,000. So that is a trend, right? That is not a spike, that is a trend. Now, the hospitalization rate has not trended up. The death rate has remained flat, though kind of weirdly so, because most other states is going down. So there's a story of state that's wide open, no change. If you go to a state like Wisconsin, where there were large gatherings, you see something that looks distressing, right? You see a straight up positive graph getting worse and worse by the day. Same with the hospitalization, same with the death rate. So you look at Wisconsin and it looks wild. But if you go back and look at its entire course in Wisconsin, they never had any surge at all. So this may be their surge. It makes me wonder whether other states that have had surges would be prone to another surge. Now, the problem with that question is, if you look, say, at California, we've been staying steadier down since September, all months of September. We're steadier down. Death rate down, hospitalization steady. Even though our director of health insisted we're going to go up 90%, we've gone down 20%. So, interesting. He predicted that, by the way, by a week from tomorrow. So that's not going to happen. We are, though, if you look at the full range of what we've been through, we're at a higher rate than we were in, say, May, June, when we were completely locked down. So it looks like the concerns that Dr. Fauci has raised are appropriate, right? Which is we're starting from a higher place. And if we start to go up, it's concerning. It's concerning. So looking at the entire country, again, the majority of the states where I find, not all of them, but the majority of the states where there's a significant uptick, and so I'm looking at Ohio right now, they didn't have a surge. Okay, so Ohio is one of these states that's got a very definite trend in the wrong direction. But they, too, have never really had a lot of cases. They've been spiking around. Now, the other interesting thing is the way statistics, the way math works, is sometimes our graphs will go like that. And sometimes they'll form sort of a head and shoulders pattern. And we got to figure out what the virus is going to figure out what we are. We don't get to figure it out. The virus gets to figure it out. And our job is to try to make sense of it. Not that we can really predict anything of, but it really tells us how we're doing more than anything else. So I'm looking at the United States, and there's a downward direction in the death rate, but we'll see if that continues that way. But there is let's see, from 29,000 to 37,000. What do we call that? A 35% or so increase in hospitalization. In the case rate, it's gone from roughly 44 to roughly 6. Okay, both have gone up about 35% or so from a relatively low rate, but not as low as back in May, June. So the question is, was it the Sturgis gathering? Is it the continued things like the Women's March? Is it the people moving about? Is it that we are... the virus is just going to do what it does? Are we not wearing masks well enough? I mean, these are all questions we have to figure out. And the question is, how much risk do we take to be able to stay open? And I'm not sure I have an answer for that. Yeah, Flora May, thank you for listening carefully. You can barely believe anything the media says. Flora May, you can believe essentially nothing the media says. You have to check everything. Brandon, epidemiology is thrilling. Can we get this right? That's the question. That is the question. I'm actually jealous of people that have been through the virus. I mean, I'd love to have had it and be done with it. The probability is, the overwhelming probability is you have immunity for at least 6 months, so you can not worry about spreading it to other people. So Tom Cigars reminds us that the World Health Organization is against lockdowns. They were strongly against it. We posted the video a couple days ago, and they're saying, quote, lockdowns do nothing except make poor people poorer. Absolutely. And at-risk people more at risk, more domestic violence, more child abuse, more drifting in terms of cognitive social development. I mean, it really is a horrible, horrible consequence. In San Francisco, their daily death rate from overdoses is 4 times the death rate of COVID. Why aren't we, if we are worried about saving lives, that's our overwhelming preoccupation, poor people are dying, why aren't we worrying about the mental health problem here? 4 a day versus 1 a day. Which one should we pay more attention to? Well, you say that what you want is safety and save lives. You should be worrying about the opioid addictions. You should be worrying about the mental health consequences of the lockdown. If you've been to a grocery store, you've already had it. No BPR, I don't think so. I've been tested many times. In fact, I'm waiting for an antibody test right now. Andrew, have we looked into the flu numbers year over year? Way down according to CDC. I did see that, and I think that's mask wearing and distancing, right? Why shouldn't the flu? The original model that the 14-year-old created in New Mexico in 2006 was about flu transmission. So she was right. It improves flu transmission if you distance. If I was forced to wear a mask, I would have not gotten H1N1. That's probably true. And believe me, H1N1 was awful. Alana saying, I guess you're in the UK. Lots of people in the UK had their cancer treatment stopped or dying at home now. Yeah, a lot of people have stopped all kinds of treatment and all kinds of screening procedures and are dying as a result. Renee, I don't know what the stingy is about. False positive with COVID PCR test, and with the fact that flu cases are highly suppressed, are flu cases being miscategorized as COVID? And this is a big, complicated question. Is it possible that PCR misclassified? No. So, Brad, I do not think we're misclassifying PCR of COVID as flu. I do think we are misclassifying cases as illnesses. So in other words, we do a 40 times amplification on our PCR. So what we're detecting is possibly just pieces of RNA, right? Not even infecting RNA. And of those who are infectious, we don't know how many actually have an illness. We've not documented that, and we sure should. We're sort of doing it. Renee is quoting your mom's house. Thank you, guys. They're sort of doing it by extrapolating against hospitalizations. But that's really saying severely ill, right? And how many get severely ill as opposed to even get sick at all. Yes, Joe, there's that lockdown clip again. Thank you for reposting that. And do watch the Cult cartoon. I think it gives you an interesting insight into how frequently we all are persuaded in a cultic kind of way. And the one thing I will always point out, if you have to check with someone else before you're supposed to have your own thought or expression, that should be an alarm. The alarm should go off all over the place. And now, if you have somebody advising you or urging you or sort of persuading you with rational thought for the rational revolution, then I'm all for it. But if somebody is telling you and is doing it with emotion that makes you feel coerced, any coercive relationship is not good. King Yeti, I see that. Let's see. Mindfulness and meditation. There was some data that came out recently that showed that for people, yes, I do know what a mensch is, done 9977. For people who have anxiety disorder, about 20% get worse, maybe even a higher percentage with mindful meditation. I think I'm one of those people. because I've tried it a million times, and it's not done what it has clearly done for other people. So I've sort of consider it a domain that I don't fully embrace because I don't respond to it, and I leave it to others to talk about it. But I know it does work for some people for sure. Listen to the experts was always the response when presented with opposing evidence. That's Brad. Isn't that sort of cultic? Sort of. Yes, Renee, long live the rational revolution. Ken, thank you. The idea is for you to use your critical thinking, critical reasoning, and to, even if you can't quite do it yourself, find a good source that is available to you. And we live in a day of access. Some critical reasoning or someone with critical reasoning that you can rely on, and always evaluate their critical reasoning. Don't take anything I say at face value. And I'm willing to, and by the way, that's why I like it when people challenge what I say. It enhances my thought process. It gets me closer to the truth, which is what we should all be aiming for. And by the way, anyone who tells you the truth doesn't matter is trying to manipulate you, right? They're trying to tell you that it's literally that's a brainwashing technique. So be very careful. Thank you, Dun9977. Thank you. Vapist. What would it be to ask what I take for anxiety? No. The vapist, here's my anxiety story. I had panic attacks and depression in college. I was completely mismanaged. People gave me benzodiazepines, made me worse. And they did not, all we had back then was the so-called tricyclic antidepressants, but nobody gave me that. It would have helped me. I ended up going from intermittent panic attack to extremely high generalized anxiety. Getting my life together really helped it. My sense of self was very weak and flimsy, and sort of getting a purpose and a course and a sense of who I was in the world really helped with all that. That was me. And then still I had longstanding generalized anxiety. And when one of our kids got sick, Susan gave me kind of a kind ultimatum that sent me into therapy. And that's where I spent doing essentially intensive, emotionally focused interpersonal psychotherapy that took care of the anxiety for good. The fundamental problem I was having, much like when I wasn't clear in sense of self, I also wasn't connected to primary affect. Spontaneous affects were far away from me. I couldn't get to them. And you get to if you're one of those people like me, you get to them through relationships, people who are skilled in getting you back and connected to those primary emotions. Alana, terrible generalization. What's the matter? Susan?
I'm trying to get your lips to sync.
She's trying desperately to get my lips to sync up.
It's getting close.
It's close. Chris Spicer, yes, well, women mostly would get men into the medical system, and your wife got you mostly what got you into your therapy. Good for you. Good looking honky, if that's really Peter North. It's good to see you again. Mostly college students using at-home COVID test on the TikTok. One student set off a sample of apple juice. I'm not sure, Doug, what you're talking about there. Can massive anxiety and panic cause daily nausea? Not only can it cause daily nausea, it can cause vomiting. Some people get a periodic vomiting syndrome associated with panic and anxiety. Burger King, thank you to Susan. Why has interpersonal therapy never seemed to work for me with my anxiety medication has? So GLB, this is sort of the magic of mental health, right? We are all very, very different. We can manifest common symptoms, but the road to those symptoms and the underlying processes can be very, very different. And because of a million things, our cultural background, our personality construct, we respond to different things differently. My guess, GLB, is that you did not have a very skilled emotionally focused therapist, or your anxiety was from something else. Your anxiety was, it can be a lot of things. It can be trauma. It can be just genetics. So it's, well, Alana, you had nausea for weeks, but you do want to always get that evaluated. Don't ever assume any symptom is psychiatric until you've had a medical evaluation. On a podcast, Joe Rogan, doctor mentioned if you had the antibodies, they only stay a few months. If you had 6 months ago, you could be tested today and show no antibodies. That is, Bridget, that is absolutely correct. But We are trying with Additix. I'm trying to develop a test that by January we'll be able to test the T cells and the memory B cells, and we will tell you whether you have immunity in spite of not having antibodies. It is entirely possible that no antibodies means nothing, and that your immune system is geared up and ready to respond anytime the virus shows up. And so that's the technology we're working on. We should have information on that in November and hopefully an actual product in January. So I'm excited about that. Common cold is mostly rhinovirus, picorna type, 99 serotypes. What are you saying there, BPR? You're talking about all the different kinds of colds, of which coronavirus is a small, like you said, maybe 50 to 10%. Yeah, Andrew Ashkazvili, I'll get you involved with those tests when we have it. I don't know what you're saying, GLB, or rather BPR. Basically, let's see. So, one of the things the rational recovery is interested in is to try to get people back into reasoning and realize when their emotions are affecting the way their mind is constructed is we have motivations and emotions, and then our brain tries to make sense of it, or it tries to justify it, or tries to incorporate it into some larger construct that makes us feel okay. And the reality is that is not a good way to approach truth or reality. The good way is to look at the evidence, evaluate the math, incorporate that into your thinking. And if it makes you feel bad to do that, too bad. You can look at those emotions, and that's an important thing, but it shouldn't persuade you differently. Now, you may have an instinct that what you're reading or what you're hearing is wrong. Fine. Keep evaluating the data, but stay completely objective. Let's see. Dr. Z on Fauci, Ashley's asking. I did not see that. I know he's very concerned about Dr. Fauci. I'm standing behind Dr. Fauci. He's not gonna waver. You can count on him. Okay, a lot of people not taking the vaccine. How can the public be comfortable about it? Pfizer's waiting for emergency approval. Joseph, we understand that concurrent production does not mean they are going to not be as diligent, as safe as they will always have been. So I feel quite at ease with taking the Pfizer vaccine. What's the matter, Susan? What's going on? Susan?
I just put the logo in front of your mouth because it's still out of sync. It's driving me cool.
Okay, so Susan's going to cover my mouth because she can't. She's getting nauseated. Maybe that's where that nausea is coming from for everybody. Well, yes, the lip sync is a mic problem, is what somebody's saying. Maybe it's something to do with this connection. What if you hook? You can't really do that. Want to try the other mic, Susan? Hello. Want to try the other mic? No. Okay, here we go. So give me a second to switch mics. Somebody suggested it's a mic problem. So here we go. Just flip it. Just flip it.
Maybe, did you click something on there?
I don't think so.
All right, well.
Did it come through? Okay, now it should be working. I don't know what happened.
Let's see what we got here. How about now? You guys hear me okay? I think it's over here. Everybody hear everything good? So I know Andrew said something. What's that, Kimberly? I'm not quite sure what you're saying there, but Andrew, you made a good point about hospitalization going down in Florida. That you may have jumped on late. I was talking about how Florida is completely open. They're being touted in the press as having a spike. They're not having a spike. They've just stayed, rather than bouncing between 2,500 and 3,500 cases a day, they're staying above 3,000. Whether or not that's a trend, concerning. They need to look at it. Same exact problem. I will stay with it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
They're encouraging. The chat world wants us to stay with it. Relax, Susan.
Okay.
All right. GSR. I think Florida's going to go up. I think they've opened up, so there's going to be some increase. That's the way it goes. But I don't think it's going to be a spike, and I think people will kind of adjust their behavior, and hopefully it doesn't continue. Do I see an increased public interest in government funding into mental health? Where you saw we did that stream with Art Kleinfeld last week, Kleinschmidt rather, and there's a new executive order that's going after this issue. So hopefully the government will get after it. Yes, they are testing a lot in Florida, Andrew, which is of course going to create a case-demic, right? Wow. M. Martin Kapow. Bad self-confidence is not a bad thing. It prevents you from developing social skills. But if you go out there and just develop a skill set, having low self-esteem, I think, is a good thing, because then you'll take responsibility for things. You'll adjust course when you're wrong. People that have very high self-esteem see all the problems that's out there, and it's hard to adjust if that's the case. Felice, I'm sorry, that's too long a statement for me to read. Yes, Mark Suave, the initial point was not to overwhelm the health system. And should we get crazy over new cases? Great question. That is a question that we have seemed to have moved away from not trying to overwhelm the healthcare system to trying to reduce the number of cases and deaths. Worthy. I don't know that we've all consciously signed up for it. And David Stricula, during the Rational Revolution at your mom's house, Dr. Drew After Dark, and also I'm at locals.com/Dr. Drew. Is that right, Susan? Locals.com/Dr. Drew. Susan?
What?
Locals.com/Dr. Drew.
DrDrew.locals.com.
DrDrew.locals.com. Sorry about that. We're going to do a little small.
My restream's not working. Yours?
Yeah. Well, the chat. So it's not sending it out.